Hello everyone, it's Susie of SusieBouilloc.com, and in today's episode we are going to cover Facebook advertising. Should you do it? Should you not? Should you do the ads yourself? Should you pay a company to do it? And if so, what do you need to know so that you get your money's worth? So stay tuned, we're going to cover all of that in this segment. Thanks for joining me today. As always, for helpful tips on how to grow your business, subscribe to my channel. If you want to be notified of new videos, hit the bell button. And if you like what you saw today, hit like. All right, so let's jump right in. I am so excited to talk about this topic, mainly because it's something that you guys have been asking about. I get a lot of questions about Facebook advertising and lead generation, so I want to address them in one video. It's not going to be like my other videos. It's not as scripted. It's a little bit more casual, but I figure you guys just want the information. I don't need to bedazzle everything. So here we go. Let's jump right in. So before I really jump into Facebook advertising, I really need to cover this because I think it's crucial to having successful campaigns, whether you run them yourself or whether you have somebody else doing them. But I think there are two things that are very important to the growth of a business. Number one is customers, a steady, consistent flow of customers, whether that be new or returning. And number two is your branding. Now, when I say that, I am not talking about $1,000 worth of a website or a logo. Branding is your customer experience. It's the value you give your customer. It's the way they feel when they interact with you, the way they feel after they've left with your product. It's really important. And the only reason I'm bringing it up now, and I don't really want to get into it because I do want to put this time towards Facebook, but you can get all the leads in the world. And I know because I've done this for customers and clients, but if you don't have a good customer service, you don't have good follow-up, they don't gain the value, or you just don't treat them well, they're gonna leave. So the two things really play hand in hand, and you really do need both. So this is why I wanted to just bring that up really quickly, because I find that a lot of people that talk about Facebook advertising, or any advertising actually, you know, they're so focused on just the advertising, getting customers in, that they don't talk about the fact that your company needs to be ready to accept customers and how to build an experience for them that they actually want to be a part of so that your business grows in the future. Because you don't want just a one-time sale. Nobody just wants a one-time sale, right? So really, really important. So I want to put that out there. So we're going to talk about Facebook advertising, but you really do need this other component. And, you know, I'll do some videos on that as well. So I want to talk about customers, because if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. We live in this crazy age right now where there are so many marketing opportunities available to us. I mean, you still have your TV, your radio, your newspaper, your magazines, but now you have YouTube and blogging and social media. You have your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Pinterest, your Twitter. I mean, it's massive, the amount of opportunity that we have to market our products. But what I found over the past few years being in this industry is that having those accounts doesn't necessarily sell your product until people believe in you. So what social media is great for is that first part that I was talking about, the branding, where people get to know you, they get to understand your company, they get to buy into that culture and see the value that you have to offer. Once you've built enough of a following there, then that starts translating into sales. And I find right now online, people have this misguided opinion that if you just post pretty pictures that the sales will come. And that's not really the case. So I wanted to just touch on that because yes, there is a huge opportunity, but I want to talk about how you get customers the quickest, because social media is kind of a long-term game. Sure, you can get a lot of likes, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a lot of sales. Some things get a lot of likes because the girl's pretty, or because some guy's being completely obscene, or some girl's doing something ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, you get likes for not necessarily the reasons you want to get likes. So what I want to come back to is, how do we get customers? How do we get people coming to your website? How do we get people coming through the doors? What is the best way, your best way to invest money into marketing yourself? Because really, that's what matters now, because you're competing with so many other companies. So how do you stand out? what I think is really important to remember if you're a smaller business or you don't have a massive team, like a marketing team that can do things for you and a sales team, and you find that you're the one that's doing a lot of the work yourself, it's really important to understand where best to spend your time, because time is money, right? And so right now online, when you see all these shiny bells and whistles, well, if you do this, it's free and get yourself out there for free, and well, that's great, but for an Instagram post or Facebook post, you have to write content and it has to be, pretty lengthy. Well, who's going to write that? Do you know how to write that? Does that mean you have to take training on how to write that? How much time is that going to take out of your day? If you want to post pictures, do you know how to take those pictures? Like, they can't just be any pictures. Do you know how to post and when to post? And so all of a sudden, all those free things that you thought were going to be great for your business are taking up so much of your time, and either you're not doing them well, so you're not seeing the return, or you're doing them well, but then you're not spending any time with your customers or growing your business in other areas that are possibly even more important. So this brings me to Facebook advertising. So I believe that there are two different sides to a business. There's customers now and there's customers in the future. Facebook done right is there to get you customers now, today, through the door, consistently, if done right. So Facebook itself, the platform, has over 2 billion active users daily, and 76% of those purchase items off of social media ads. Now, you might say, well, I'm a local business. What does that matter? Well, locally, people are still using Facebook every day, all the time, and there's still a high percentage of people, even locally, buying products off of social media. So it is definitely one of the best platforms out there, in my opinion, and for the value to get your name out there. But I want to discuss, does this make sense for your business? Because it might not make sense for everybody. I have a lot of businesses that say, well, I advertise in the local newspaper or in a magazine and it's way cheaper. Okay, well, here's the difference between advertising in print and advertising on Facebook. And I know because I have sold print advertising for years and years. And when you put something in a magazine, you don't know if that person's going to pick up that magazine. You don't know if they're going to flip to that page. All they can really tell you is that they have a distributorship of so much. But do you know if those people are actually seeing your ad? And what happens, when that ad runs for 3 to 6 months and now you've made changes? You can't even make changes to the ad. So you're very, very limited. So it might be cheaper, but in the long run, there's not really a good way of knowing if you're getting the return on that. So one of the biggest advantages to Facebook advertising is that you get to target who sees it. Because if you put something in a newspaper or you put something on a billboard, you don't know if it's going to be seen by the right person. But if you're putting it on Facebook and you know what you're doing, you can target to specifically the people that are already looking for your product. So when your advertisement comes by and they're interested, those are the people that click on it. It's not just some random person. Furthermore, with Facebook advertising, it does collect all these statistics, who's looking at it, the demographics, where. And so when you receive those statistics, then you can retarget that traffic to go even more specific to the customers that you're looking for. And that's huge because it's one of the only ways of advertising, or like if you're comparing it to print, especially, where you're in control, where you can tweak things as you're doing them. So the money that you're putting into it is going a lot further because it's a live campaign that's getting information and tweaking and changing to meet your needs. And I think that's really, really important in today's age, because you don't want to be putting out money for something, that might not be working and then just letting it run for no reason. So for those of you that have never run Facebook campaigns, I just want to break it down a little bit so you know what you should be looking for in a campaign if you're going to do it yourself or if you're going to ask a company to do it. So first of all, you have your ad. So your ad will consist of copy, which is the written part, and you want to make sure that that's written well. You want to make sure that there is the proper targeted keywords in there, that you're not saying too much, that it's actually drawing people into the ad. Then you have your picture. Usually what happens when you first run a campaign, you run it with a few different pictures and let it run for a little bit to see which picture or video is performing the best. So that's the Facebook ad, but it doesn't stop there. That needs to then connect to something. And for a good campaign, you want it to connect to a landing page. Now, I know many of you are thinking, well, Susie, I just spent thousands of dollars on a website. Why can't the ad just link directly to the website? A website is like handing your potential customer a brochure with a list of your products and services and then praying that they spend money with you. Whereas a landing page is specifically designed to be a high sales conversion website. So it would be like taking, like cloning your best salesperson and then having them work 24/7. That's basically what a landing page is. So this is a job of the landing page. It takes the people who are just scrolling through Facebook, whose interest was piqued by your ad, then it takes them to a landing page where they learn more about your product or your service, some of their questions are answered, and then it has them make an action or take action by either filling out their name, their phone number. And when somebody does that, there's no one standing over them forcing them to do that. It means they're interested. That's someone who's past just wondering about your product. They are now taking an action and they're saying, tell me more. I need to know more. I want to make a decision. And those are the leads that you want because they're highly, highly targeted and they are time sensitive. So if you do Facebook advertising, you have to be ready to follow up with them, because if you do, your return on this type of investment is going to be a lot greater, because these guys are filling information out saying, I want more information. Nobody's forcing it on them. Does that make sense? So I want to get into the cost of Facebook, whether you're going to do it on your own or work with an agency. And obviously I can't speak for all agencies, but I want to at least give you a little bit of an idea of what kind of cost you're looking at. Something that I do want you to take into consideration: if you don't have a great website, if you aren't advertising anywhere else, if you don't have a huge social media following, it doesn't matter. And that's why I said Facebook advertising gets customers now, because it gets the leads coming in. And even if you don't have a Facebook, or even if you don't have a website or a good website, it's not going to the website anyway. It's going to a landing page that looks professional, it's well put together, it answers all their questions, and it's actually high converting rather than just a brochure. Its main job is to pique people's interest enough to take action, to want to know more information and get in contact with you, or you get in contact with them. So you have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about cost, because if you can't afford to do an amazing website, this is, in my opinion, this is the best way to start. If you feel like you need a website, put a one-pager up just talking about your company. But the landing page is what's going to get you the customers. So all of that is included in Facebook advertising in the campaign when it's done right. Okay, let's talk about doing Facebook advertising for yourself. Obviously, this is not going to be training on how to do Facebook advertising. It would take forever. Well, not forever. You can do training on it, but it is time consuming. People make it sound like it's very, very easy. However, Facebook is always changing. Their algorithms are changing. Just the different strategies that you can use are always changing. So it is something that if you want to do, you have to commit that time to learning on a regular basis. So you need to know that if you want to do Facebook advertising yourself, it is a time commitment and you have to learn it. Otherwise, you're going to wing it and then you're going to be surprised that nothing came through. Because some of the things that you have to know, obviously, is writing copy, and that's writing the wording for the actual ad, and then putting a landing page together, which, you know, usually takes designers and writers and salespeople to make that a good landing page that's going to actually convert into leads. So if you know all of that, that's great. Then you can do it yourself, and again, you can learn and I can definitely give you resources for that. I think a lot of people will say, well, if I do it on my own, it's really cheap because I can spend like $100 or, you know, the minimum amount on Facebook advertising. Well, here's the thing. If you put your ad on a billboard and you put it on a street that only 5 cars pass, you're not going to get a lot of customers. It's the same thing with any type of advertising. If you're going to spend $5 or if you're going to spend, you know, $2,000, there's a big difference in how many people are going to see your ad. And that's basically how Facebook advertising works. So your ad spend on Facebook, because that's what you're paying Facebook, you're paying to use their platform, and you're paying ad spend. So that's what's showing your ad to potential customers. That number that you spend is directly linked to how many people see it. So the more you spend, the more people see it. But then the more you spend, more people see it, you better make sure that that ad and that landing page are high converting. So yes, absolutely you can do your own Facebook advertising, but I would definitely invest in learning how to do that. And if you don't have the time, then I would recommend possibly looking into an agency to do that for you. So I'm going to talk about that next. I want to be completely transparent because obviously I run a marketing agency and we do offer Facebook advertising. But the point of this video was to explain Facebook advertising so that you know if it's a good fit for you. And if you decide to go with an agency, what you should be looking for and what questions to ask. So I'm just going to cover those really quickly next. Okay, the first cost I want to talk about is the ad spend. Now, the ad spend is what you're paying Facebook to use their platform for. So the agency that you're working with doesn't make any money off the ad spend. That goes directly to Facebook. It might go through the agency, but I mean, if you decide on $200 or $500 or $1,000 for ad spend, all of that money is going to Facebook. So just make sure that you understand that. Okay, so let's talk about what a realistic ad spend might be. Now, this is dependent on your industry. So if you are an industry with a lot of competition, and usually those industries tend to make more money, you will have to spend more on ad spend. But the good thing, it's kind of correlated with how much that industry makes, so it kind of balances out, if that makes sense. So usually if you're a smaller business or your industry is a little bit smaller, then you're able to get away with an ad spend that's a little bit smaller. So an ad spend for a surgeon might be very different to an ad spend for a hair salon, right? Now I want to give you an idea of what a good ad spend is, and this is based off my team running Facebook ads for 17 years. But the minimum I would say is $500 a month. So that's the ad spend. That's nothing going to the agency. So let's talk about agency pricing. Now, for those of you that think, okay, forget it, I'm just going to do it myself and just put the money into the ad spend, keep in mind that then you still have to come up with the ad, the writing, the design, the graphics, hosting, domain names, landing pages if you're paying for a platform to put your landing page on, and then all the time associated with that, and then the training that you might have to pay for to learn how to do proper Facebook advertising. Okay, let's talk about agency pricing. Obviously, I cannot tell you what agencies are charging, but I can tell you this much. You should make more than the agency. And the only way you're going to know if this makes sense for you is if the agency asks to sit down with you or does a meeting where you talk about your customers, you talk about your needs, and you talk about what one customer is worth to you over a certain amount of time. Because only then does it make sense if the numbers work. The numbers have to work, and you won't know that unless you sit down and have a conversation with a consultant. So any of these companies that are just quoting you numbers, I would be a little weary of, because I mean, some of them might be undercharging you and they don't know what they're doing. Some of them might be overcharging you, and it's not making sense numbers wise either. So you really need to know what those numbers are, and you need them to explain it to you. So for example, if one customer is worth $2,000 at the end of the year and you have 10 of those come in through your leads, and that's $10,000, well then paying $1,000 to your agency makes sense. right? But you need to sit down and run those numbers and make sure that it makes sense, and ask what they're going to do for you. Ask questions. So when it comes to agency pricing, I cannot give you a price. I can't even give you a price for our agency, because I would want to sit down with you and discuss what makes sense, because this might not make sense to you. A $500 spend might not make sense to you, but it might. If you do the actual calculations and you lay everything out, you might be surprised that if you knock off all these other things you're spending money on that aren't bringing in a return, bringing targeted traffic and direct leads might be your best bet. There's your website. There are your leads. Now you just have to work on your customer service and your follow-up, and all of that is in your control. And I think that that's what smaller businesses are really good at. If you take the time, instead of being so completely pulled in all these different directions with social media and this and that, if you just hone in on what you're good at, your passion for your product. Once that lead comes to you and you show them that you're knowledgeable and you care and you create an amazing experience for them, that's where your sales are going to come in. So is Facebook advertising right for you? I can't answer that. But what I would say is you need to ask yourself, dependent on which industry you're in, what would an additional 5 new customers every single month look like? What would an additional 10 customers or 30 customers? And when I say it's dependent on your industry, well, if you're selling something low end, then you're probably going to get a lot more customers. Whereas if you're a dentist, 5 new customers a month is a big deal, right? So it's comparable to the industry, but you have to know what you need to gain to make your business scale. I can tell you this. There is no other platform right now on the planet that will generate the quality and the quantity of leads at such a low cost per lead if it's done right. So is Facebook advertising right for you? You have to ask yourself, do I want customers now? If the answer to that is yes, then you might want to consider Facebook advertising. Now, whether you want to do it yourself, and you can, there are lots of trainings and courses, and if you want more information on that, I can send that to you, but keep in mind, the good ones are not cheap, because you want a support system. When you get stuck on statistics or research or retargeting, you want to be able to contact someone and have a support system in place that answers your question, because if you're not technical, then it can become very difficult. But that is an option. If you want to work with an agency, just know and just be aware of the questions you should be asking, and make sure that they know what they're doing and that they're willing to work with you and answer your questions. Okay guys, I'm just gonna wrap things up. Hopefully I was able to answer some of your questions. Hopefully you have a better understanding of how Facebook advertising works, and if you are interested, which direction you want to go. If you have any questions, obviously put them in the comments below. And it's been a pleasure doing another video with you, and as always, to your success.